the Tuohys and Michael Oher.
Speaking of forced apologies.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be some forced apologies coming soon.
So we didn't hear, other than a statement that was made a couple of years back in a book, I believe, that Sean and Leanne Tuohy wrote. We didn't hear from them yesterday, except on a quick hit on Barstool Radio. Here is Sean Tuohy discussing what Michael Oher filed through a Shelby County, Tennessee court with his attorney yesterday, saying that he did not learn until this past February that he had signed a document making the Tuohys conservators over all things Oher, last name Oher, name, image, likeness. When he signed it in 2018, he said he was tricked into signing it, thinking it was for a full adoption into the family. And that took everyone by surprise with this news, because he's saying that the Blind Side story is fabricated and a lie. Here is Sean Tuohy discussing that with Barstool Radio.
I'm going to preface by saying that I loved Mike at 16. I love Mike at now he's, 16 and a half years old, 37, and I love him at 67. So there's not going to be any legal dossier or thing that happens that's going to maybe, go like, screw that guy. It's not the case. I'll be mad at him. But to your initial point, no, I mean, if he says he learned that in February, I find that hard to believe. So I went back to my text today to look at, I was curious today randomly to go back to look at our family group texts and text to see what things had been said. And there were things back in 2020, 2021 that were like, if you guys give me this much, then I won't go public with things. And so I don't know that's true. I think everyone learned in the past year about the conservatorship stuff because of Britney Spears. So maybe that's the case.
And so hearing that, saying if he's got text from Michael Oher who says, hey, give me this much and I won't go public. And this was 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, it's blackmail.
Yes, and that also makes whatever's been filed in court inaccurate and false. This is going to be fascinating to follow, because the documents that he said he signed and didn't know it when he was 18 compared to when he found out, he's 37 now. And then whatever Sean Tuohy is saying about text messages that he's referencing but didn't show in 2020 or 2021, the back and forth and the discovery process of this, it's going to be lengthy if it gets to the court. And if it doesn't, the negotiations behind the scenes and statements made are going to be like a tennis match back and forth, who's lying and who's not, and who should we believe and who shouldn't we believe, based on the story that we certainly found out in depth with, a movie that made $300 million over the course of the release of a very popular film, The Blind Side.
Well, this is a perfect soap opera for sports that's taking place right now.
So
because everybody knows the story because of the movie, and if you read the Michael Lewis book, and there's so many conflicting claims and reports that's out there. So the Tuohy family is saying originally, we negotiated a deal with Michael Lewis. We got a one-time payment for the rights to the movie in his book from him and his camp in the movie studio.
$250,000.
$250,000 that someone claimed Michael received as well.
Yeah,
up front.
5 payments, yes.
Now, here's where it gets a little weird, is Oher's claiming they've continued to make millions after the fact. Sean Tuohy Jr. says in that same interview later on, we haven't really made that much. He said, I'd say 60 to 70K over the last 2 to 3 years. Okay?
Last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. And that's also not nothing.
And
that's 70K over 2 or 3 years. Are you making that every 2 to 3 years? Because if so, that supports the claim. And the fact you're saying you've made that money in the last 2 to 3 years tells me Michael Oher may be right about this claim, that there's some sort of royalty split that he's not seeing. And I agree with Oher. He should see that royalty split on it if something's going on after the fact.
And Chad, what's in the court filing is they sold the story in perpetuity to 20th Century Fox, and that it was 2.5% of all of the net earnings from the film, which grossed $300 million, roughly.
Yeah, and I also think the family's clearly got on the same page. S.J. Tuohy says, I loved him at 16, I love him at 37.
Right.
Sean Tuohy released the same statement to the Daily Memphian. He said, I'm going to love the kid today just like I did when he was 16. and we're still going to love them, yada, yada, yada. Look, the plot thickens on this thing. I don't know who's right. I don't know who's wrong, but I'm going to keep following.
And you know what they didn't say? Adoption or son. Just
Just
Michael Oher.
this man.